I think it's on.
It's on. Am I satisfied? I think I always want more, Mike. I'm an economist. There's a lot of great work that has happened. I know that there's a lot of innovative startups out here, represented here today, who are all driving customer propositions and doing fantastic work. So my sense is that there is a tremendous groundswell of activity, but I do feel that we've got a blockage that needs to be unblocked.
Karen, I think your term was outlier.
We are definitely an outlier in terms of the OECD. Look, it's not lost on anybody in the room here just what is going on globally and just the level of change that is going on and the breadth of services that are being created from it. The innovation is quite revolutionary, and I think Rachel did a good job of indicating where things can, continue to evolve. But it's not just, I think, revolutionary in terms of the technological sense, but the opportunities to simplify payment infrastructure overall is really key. Crypto is a great example of people going outside or having the opportunity to bypass existing payment rails. A CBDC designed appropriately could do the same thing. In contrast, we're still hanging on to old infrastructure and old payment practices here in New Zealand, and that needs to change, and we should be concerned. New services, new technologies delivered elsewhere can, be more rapidly adopted here. As I mentioned, as a central bank, we are concerned about that because the more disaggregated and externalised payments and the use of money becomes, and the sources of how that flows within an economy, the harder it actually becomes for us to be able to actually implement monetary policy, which is one of the key things that a Reserve Bank is actually there for. So we are concerned about it, and we do want to do everything that we can to help the industry here in New Zealand to move at a faster pace, because that's the ideal scenario.
I think we've got a question in front of us.
Hi, Russell Bryant from Bank of New Zealand. I've got a question or a comment for John and possibly a plea for Karen. Sorry, that's less. It'll be less dramatic than that sounded. The Commerce Act has had an impact on the open banking work. So one of the third that we need to do to make a bunch of APIs work and have a consistent way that third parties could connect to them is way more than having a common standard and people building those endpoints. We recognise doing that piece of work that having common terms and conditions, having common ways that businesses would come in and the risk hurdles that they had to, the questions that if we all ask them the same questions, then we cut down that development cycle. And we had a stream of work called the Partnership Working Group that was working on that. And then we ran into the Commerce Act and realised that having those conversations put us all at peril. And the avenue out for doing that, which was to seek authorisation, looked very long and very expensive, and would probably, about the time it might have delivered an answer, because you guys have to consult widely on those sorts of things. The consumer data right would come along and potentially roll over the top of it. So, we haven't been able to do that. So anything to think about how early in this engaged process where all regulators are talking to each other, to give air cover to have some of those conversations without us having to find that will help the cycle for New Zealand. And for Karen, can the Reserve Bank continue to think about this move to orthodoxy as far as engaging with Payments New Zealand. So you used to have people sitting in the room who would listen to the conversation, and there's so much more nuance and understanding and trusting whether people are saying what they're saying that comes out of that. And my understanding of the orthodoxy argument is that the rest of the world doesn't do it, but the rest of the world doesn't do it because they're not New Zealand.
Yeah.
And the risk of corruption of officials and things because they get too close doesn't look like it's our experience here.
Yeah.
And we miss playing to the advantages of New Zealand's small size and that those limited degrees of separation. So if you could have a think about that, that would also be helpful.
Look, yeah. Point noted, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Thanks, Russell. That's a really useful comment. As I indicated, this is a new role for us, but the Commerce Act is not. It's an old role, so we probably should have been talking earlier. I think. Let's make sure that we make that happen. There are collaborative activity clearances are potentially a way through this, but I mean, we really want to make sure that this happens, and so we're very keen to work with you to achieve that, because it seems that the prize here is way bigger than the risks. So let's talk later.
We have another question? Yes, up the front here. Well, in both of your speeches, I mean, there was a pretty strong theme of collaboration and support. Yeah. I guess we should be throwing the question out here: do they feel like they're getting that? Yeah. While we're getting them.
I think they gave us their answer.
Good morning. So Ryan McQueen from Accenture. Karen, you talked about being in a position of a laggard versus other countries around the world, and we cover globally from a standpoint and understand where you're coming from. But what are the key things that led New Zealand into that position, and what are the 3 things that we need to focus on now to ensure that it becomes a leader?
Yeah, look, that is a really interesting question, because New Zealand has been a leader before. FPOS is a great example of where we did that. This is me personally. I'll just take the RB hat off for a moment. I think there's a couple of things. I think and it goes back to something that Rachel raised in her speech. I think that people moved into silos. I think that the theme of collaboration just became harder. I think that industry stakeholders, and that's everybody, right? So that is industry players, that is society, that is regulators as well, have leaned heavily back into the roles that we've been deemed to play. And one of, I think, the really key theme that both John and I have tried to pull out here is that we're only going to get that shift moving forward, actually, if we step back from that. And, the challenge was put to us to ensure that greater engagement, greater collaboration starts to happen. Now, the payments and money and cash teams at the RB are trying to do that. They're trying to adopt a different way now of engaging. So think about broader forums. It's not just about putting consultation paper out, getting something in, and then we'll come back 6 months later and maybe give you an answer that we were probably thinking about already at the start. It is about bringing people on the journey. And the way they're setting up the CBDC engagement, the cash redesign engagement is exactly around that. Get people in the room, talk through the issues, share the learnings, and figure out how we do this together, not as a separate entity.
Thank you for that. We've got time for one more question. I can see a hand up down the end there. It's amazing. Oh, sorry. Oh, you've got it there. Right. Great. Far away.
Lauren Page from Bank of New Zealand. This is probably a question more for Karen. as cash is a poor store of value, and this has been accentuated by the recent inflation environment that we're currently in.
Yeah.
If the if the RBNZ was to issue their own form of digital currency, how would they ensure that this floor is reduced and that we don't go in the way of fluctuations like the Bitcoin is at the moment, and it's a bit more stable?
Yeah, central bank money doesn't fluctuate, to the same degree as you have that way, because trust is built over time, and that's, as I talked about previously, the importance of monetary sovereignty and price stability and the role that central bank money plays in supporting that. It's the whole mechanism that drives that. The way we're thinking about central bank digital currency is we need to ensure that same level of trust and anchor sits there. So that doesn't mean that we're talking about going outside of the system. It's talking about actually replicating some of those similar themes in the form of a digital currency. So it underpins, it doesn't replace private. So thinking about safety and interoperability with the system itself is incredibly important in order to be able to do that. And that is a really key focus for the team. And it's actually one of the really big learnings I took from talking to those that are already piloting around the world, is interoperability with the system is fundamental.
Great. We did have did someone get a microphone over there? No, can we get a microphone over here? Has anyone else got a microphone? Great.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Fairbrother. I am a payments nerd, and I'm not affiliated with any business or entity at the moment. So my question is to both John and Karen. So Karen, the RBNZ is in charge of cash, and the Commission is in charge of all of the other retail payment systems. I would like to know how you're both going to work together, because they are substitutes for one another at a certain level,
Yeah.
and what, so for the regulatory aspect, but also then for the innovation aspect going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Great question. I mean, what's happening at the moment, and ever since we got into this business, we've been in touch with the bank, and we've got a group of people here I know that you know, and they are regularly talking to people inside the Reserve Bank about exactly this issue, and I'm delighted to say that there is a high degree of alignment, both in overall objectives and in terms of the kinds of strategies and initiatives. So I can't give, if you want the actual details, how the sausage is actually made, you need to talk to our people. But I can assure you that it is being made, and that people are working very constructively together. It's, from my point of view, it's extremely encouraging to hear about how good those relationships are. So it is very joined up, as we used to say.
Yeah, I think the creation of COFA has started. It's on a journey. It has started to make a difference in terms of sharing of information, understanding impacts across whole of system, allowing us to sequence work in a way that hopefully doesn't see it all land at once. I can't guarantee that, but those discussions are happening, as John referred to, the bilaterals. So that has kind of really ensured that the agencies are now starting to spend a lot more time together, understanding how everything connects, that we don't have that siloed proposition that I talked about earlier, and the consequences that fall that creates. And it creates significant consequences. I know. I've lived it.
What an absolute thrill to have the Reserve Bank and the Commerce Commission up on stage here and to answer your questions as well as their presentations. Please could you give Karen Silk and Dr. John Small a big round of applause.